As MB Holding, we started actually in the oilfield services sector. We started in the mid-80s and by the mid-90s became the largest oilfield service operator in Oman and eventually in the Gulf. In the mid-90s, we actually found an opportunity to enter the E&P business by acquiring the assets of ELF as they were leaving Oman. We formed a new business called Petrogas, which today is the driver of the group. So we probably do about 45,000 barrels of oil a day. We also went into the mining business, which is the second largest part of the group, and engineering is, of course, the fourth pillar of the group. So services, manufacturing, a big player in oil in-country value in many parts of the world. We operate, depending on the business, in almost about 19 countries as MB Holding. I actually believe that Oman is a very good place to invest. It's a relatively straightforward, relatively transparent market. In-country value should be seen as an advantage, not as a disadvantage. There is a developed pool of labor in Oman. The oil fields in Oman are actually relatively complex, much more fractured, smaller, which means that you have more technically competent people. Locals tend to stay longer. A lot of people look at the cost related to it and believe it's expensive. Yes, it is more expensive, but I think that you could actually make it on a full value life cycle work for you. The opportunities are more towards companies now that have niche services and to companies that are ready to add more value in the country. So the days of importing and agencies and so forth, those are long dead. So it's really about in-country value. If JVing, or if you're a company out of the States, for example, if you're looking at actually manufacturing, producing, designing in country, there's immense potential. Companies such as Cameron out of the States, for example, are doing very, very well now, because they've invested in actually having facilities and putting value in the country in Oman. Well, obviously it depends on what side of the oil and gas sector are you and what do you have to offer. It is a very transparent market. It's a very transparent bidding process. Setting up is not that hard, but it is very competitive, and the in-country requirements of Omanization, for example, are quite high. So I have to admit, it may not be very easy as a new player, but the opportunities are always there. It depends on what sector of the oil and gas market. I don't think there's an issue with transparency in terms of regulation, in terms of, I think where there's a lot of improvement is actually more in process. So bureaucracy needs to improve. There is a bureaucratic process. It's really the time frames and time lags. So you may be expecting something to take a month to get an environmental permit, and in reality it's more like 6 months. So it's not an issue of transparency, it's more of an issue of process. That's actually an easy one, because Oman has actually provided a lot of stability in the oil sector. So it's one of the few countries in the GCC that has been open to E&P, to small companies and mid-sized companies, and it's always had a stability of royalty systems, of PSAs, taxation, imports. So in that particular perspective, it's actually a very, very good country to operate in. So the government has been very clear with their policies.